Kyoto, early morning. The sun hasn't fully risen yet. A soft mist hangs over a narrow stone path leading toward a small Zen temple hidden between ancient cedar trees. A man sits alone on the temple stairs, unmoving. His hands are trembling, not from the cold, but from something deeper, a habit he can't escape. He reaches into his coat pocket, fingers brushing against a cigarette he swore he would quit. His breath is uneven, his chest is tight. His mind says, just one more won't hurt. His body is already leaning forward, craving the familiar burn in his lungs. He can almost taste the smoke before it even touches his lips. He hears distant birds. The sound is soft, faint, but inside his head, chaos. I'm so tired of this, he whispers to himself, voice cracking, barely audible. Why can't I stop? His shoulders sink. The cigarette is still between his fingers, but he doesn't light it. He just stands there, stuck between who he's been and who he wants to become. Shame presses into his stomach. His jaw locks. He closes his eyes. He hates this version of himself, the one controlled by urges stronger than his own will. And then, footsteps. An old monk approaches slowly, not judging, not interrupting, simply observing. The man looks up, startled, and quickly hides the cigarette in his fist. The monk watches, calm as still water. You don't need to fight it, the monk says, voice gentle but steady. Just notice it. The man frowns. Notice it? The monk steps closer and places a hand over the man's closed fist, the one gripping the cigarette. Your habit is not your enemy. It's a message. Listen to it before you destroy yourself trying to silence it. In the distance, a temple bell rings. The man looks at the cigarette again, and this time, he doesn't feel weak. He feels aware. He drops it, and for the first time in years, he breathes without smoke. That moment, right there, is the birth of change. Not through force, not through shame, but through awareness. You don't need to fight your habits. You need to see them clearly and choose differently. So here is the final reflection. Listen with your whole being. One day, you will wake up, and the habit that once owned you will feel foreign, distant, like an echo from another lifetime. And in that moment, you will realize you never needed more willpower. You needed more awareness. Because awareness is the birthplace of discipline, and discipline is the path to freedom. Now breathe. You are no longer who you were, and who you are becoming is already unfolding. This is your mindful rebirth. Walk it with presence. Walk it with patience. Walk it with purpose. And remember, your habits shape your destiny, but your awareness chooses your habits. Now listen carefully, because if you truly understand what I'm about to tell you, you will never look at your habits the same way again. Your habits are not random. They are not accidents. They are reflections. They reflect what you fear. They reflect what you crave. They reflect what you avoid. They reflect how you cope with emotions you don't know how to process. Your habits are the silent architecture of your identity, built one unconscious choice at a time. You didn't choose to be addicted to your phone. You didn't choose to scroll at 2 a.m. You didn't choose to comfort yourself with sugar or nicotine or porn or gossip. But you did allow them to become familiar, automatic, invisible. Habits are not just actions. They are loops of emotion. You feel something, you react. The reaction becomes a habit. The habit becomes identity. And here's the trap. We think we are our habits. I'm lazy. I'm addicted. I'm weak. I'm undisciplined. But that's a lie. You are not your habits. You are the awareness behind them. This is where mindfulness becomes power. Not softness, not passiveness, power. Shikan, the ancient Zen practice, means just observing, not judging, not denying, observing with full presence. Imagine this. Every time a bad habit tries to control you, you don't fight it. You watch it. You say, I feel the urge to scroll. My chest is tight. My mind is restless. You shine a light on the darkness, and the darkness loses power. When you become aware of the habit, you separate yourself from it. You interrupt the trance. You stand at the center of your life again. And that is where discipline begins, not through force, but through seeing with clarity. Let's break this down into something real, something you can practice today. First, a habit lives in the body before it lives in behavior. Before you reach for the cookie, before you open social media, before you lie, avoid, binge, or escape, there is always a physical signal. Maybe it's tension in your throat. Maybe your heart beats faster. Maybe your stomach curls inward. Maybe your shoulders rise close to your ears. Maybe your jaw locks into place. Habits grow inside the body before you ever act them out. That's why the first step is not control. It's awareness. But awareness is hard, especially if you've spent years escaping your own emotions. So here's the simplest grounding practice, one used by monks for centuries. Whenever you feel the urge to fall into a bad habit, don't react, don't judge. Just do this. Stop. Breathe in slowly. Feel the air hit your lungs. Let your shoulders drop. Place your attention in the feeling, not the escape. Say to yourself, I am here. I am aware. I am choosing. Now listen. That moment of awareness is the doorway to freedom. Because once you can pause, even for 3 seconds, the habit no longer owns you. That pause is where your life changes. Think of discipline like a sword. Sharp, precise, and controlled. But most people try to swing the sword while blindfolded. Mindfulness removes the blindfold. It shows you, this is what I feel. This is why I act. This is what I'm avoiding. That is self-mastery. Now let's go deeper. Why are habits so powerful? Why are some patterns harder to break than others? Because habits become identity. If you smoke every day, you don't say, I smoke sometimes. You say, I am a smoker. If you procrastinate, you don't say, I delayed today. You say, I'm lazy. But listen to this. Identity is just repetition, frozen in time. The moment you become aware of the loop, you can rewrite it. Let me show you. Bad habit. I scroll because I'm bored. Deep truth. I scroll because I'm avoiding feelings I don't know how to sit with. Bad habit. I eat junk when I'm stressed. Real truth. I eat because I never learned how to comfort my inner pain. Bad habit. I go back to toxic people. Truth. I fear loneliness more than I value peace. Awareness dissolves self-deception. It reveals the real wound beneath the habit. And once the wound is seen, it can be healed. This is the mindful path. Not force, not guilt, not self-hate, but presence. Let's go further, because now we enter the heart of transformation. If awareness is the first key, intentional replacement is the second. You cannot destroy a habit by removing it. You must replace it. Nature hates emptiness. The mind hates emptiness. If you remove a pattern and don't replace it, it comes back stronger. So here is the question you must ask. What action aligns with the kind of person I want to become? Not, how do I stop? But, what do I do instead? This is where Japanese philosophy becomes practical. Ikigai, your reason for being, your inner compass. Your habits must serve your purpose, or they serve your decay. Let's say your bad habit is evening binge eating. You don't just stop, you replace. Maybe with tea, or journaling, or a slow walk, or a cold shower. Anything that honors your path. You interrupt the old loop and install a new one. You do it once, then again, until the replacement becomes the new normal. Discipline isn't a battle, it's a shift in alignment. Think of bamboo. You don't snap it into discipline. You bend it, gently, consistently, until it grows in a new direction. This is how a habit dies quietly, without a fight. There's a famous Zen saying, "Let your awareness be like a lantern, not a sword." A sword can cut, but a lantern reveals, and that's the true power. When you fully see your habit, without adding shame, it begins to dissolve on its own. Not instantly, not in one day, but steadily, like melting ice under morning sun. This is where people fail. They mistake self-hate for self-discipline. They think breaking habits means waging war against themselves. But the warrior who fights himself eventually dies by his own blade. True discipline does not come from beating yourself down. It comes from lifting yourself into alignment. Let me show you something we rarely talk about. Every habit you struggle with was once a solution. You didn't start binge eating because you loved food. You ate because you needed comfort when no one else gave it to you. You didn't get addicted to porn because you're weak. You sought it because it distracted you from emotional emptiness. You didn't start smoking because it tasted good. You smoked because it gave you a moment of relief from a mind full of noise. Your habits were born in a moment of suffering. They kept you alive when you didn't have better tools. This is why self-compassion isn't softness. It's clarity. When you see the origin, you stop hating the habit and start transforming it. You must become the kind of person for whom that habit is no longer natural. That means instead of saying, "I'm trying to quit," say, "I don't do that anymore," even before it's fully true. Identity leads, behavior follows. Now let's talk about grounding, because without grounding, awareness collapses. Grounding is when the mind returns to the body, where fear dissolves, where urges soften. Here is a grounding method used by samurai before combat and by monks before meditation. Stand still. Feel your feet on the ground. Bend your knees slightly. Exhale slow. Feel the weight settle. And say internally, "I am here. I am safe. I am choosing." That last line matters. I am choosing. Because a habit steals your choice. Awareness returns it. Now I want you to imagine something. Imagine you're sitting in a quiet room, late at night. The urge appears, whatever your habit is. The familiar pull, the inner voice saying, "This will make you feel better." But this time, instead of reacting, you pause. You breathe. You observe. You name what you feel. You stay present. And slowly, the urge passes. You didn't fight it. You outlasted it. That is how you become stronger than the storm. Not by force, but by stillness. Now we enter the deeper layer, the psychology of urges. Every habit begins with a trigger, an emotion, a moment, a thought. The habit becomes automatic because the trigger and the action fuse into one. So here's what mindfulness does. It breaks the fusion. Instead of, "I feel stress, I smoke," it becomes, "I feel stress, I notice the urge to smoke." That gap, that tiny space, is where transformation happens. Think of it like this. Between stimulus and response, there is space. Inside that space, you meet yourself. And whoever you choose to be in that space, that is your true identity. Let's talk about environment, because habits don't just live inside of you. They live around you. If the cigarette is in the drawer, the habit is alive. If the junk food is in your kitchen, the habit is alive. If the phone sleeps beside your pillow, the habit is alive. Sometimes discipline isn't internal, it's structural. A wise man removes the sword before the fight ever begins. If you truly want to break a habit, don't just change your mind, change your environment. Delete the app, remove the trigger, rewrite the space around you. Now, we come to intention. You cannot break a habit without a why. If your reason is weak, your discipline will crumble. So ask yourself, who am I becoming? Because every habit is a vote. Each day you either vote for the future you want or against it. If your future self is calm, strong, present, then your habits must reflect that. Now, I want to give you a mental shift. Stop thinking of habits as chains. Think of them as doors. Some doors lead to decay. Some doors lead to mastery. Every time you choose a habit, you walk through a door. Scrolling is a door. Freezing is a door. Mindless eating is a door. Sleeping in is a door. But so are these: journaling, deep breathing, cold showers, long walks, silence, stillness, honest reflection. You are always walking through doors. You are always making a choice. The question is, are you choosing consciously or unconsciously? This is the core of mindfulness, to be awake inside your own life, not sleepwalking through impulses, not reacting, not repeating the past, but choosing with presence who you are becoming. Now we come to the final transformation, replacing destructive habits with purposeful ones. I will give you a structure, simple, powerful, ancient. Notice the impulse, pause and breathe. Identify the emotion beneath it. Ask, what do I truly need right now? Choose an action that aligns with your purpose. This is how addiction becomes presence, how chaos becomes clarity, how weakness becomes strength. Not overnight, but over time. Because discipline is not intensity. Discipline is consistency. The samurai did not train once, they trained every day. The monk did not meditate once, they returned to the cushion continually. The calligrapher did not master the brush in a week. They repeated the stroke 10,000 times. Not perfectly, but faithfully. This is the path: awareness, presence, replacement, identity. You break the loop. You rewrite the pattern. You rebuild the self. Let me leave you with a story from Miyamoto Musashi, undefeated samurai, warrior philosopher. He once said, "Do nothing that is of no use." Simple words, infinite depth. We live in a world full of distraction, temptation, noise, pleasure without peace. But if you apply those words truly, everything changes. Ask yourself, is this action useful to the person I want to become? If the answer is no, let it go. Let the habit die. Let the old self collapse. And begin again with awareness as your guide.